Welcome to The Good, the Bad, and the Kino. This week, Moses and I are breaking down 2019's Watchmen, which is created by Damon Lindelof, produced by HBO, and it is a continuation of the seminal graphic novel by Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons.
Yes,
which
it is.
Moses is kind enough to show us the book now, which is an incredible piece of writing. It's my
I've
favorite
owned this
book,
book for
if
so
not
many years,
second
and I
favorite
only
book.
recently read it.
You missed out for so long.
I was just
Such a
busy with
great
high
book.
school, and the pacing in the first half was kind of odd.
Well, it's a dense book. It's a very dense book, but in the best possible way. So
this was
to
our
kind of start off
second
with,
watch of the show, by the way.
yeah.
So we talked about it on the podcast before, but we watched this 2 months ago, maybe.
Yeah. So I watched this for the first time in early May, and then was so floored by it. I recommended it to Moses. Moses watched it, and then we were like, okay, let's do this on the podcast, but later, so we have enough time to kind of forget bits and pieces of it and kind of come back to it fresh, which is what we've done over the course of the past week. It's a 9-episode series.
The past 3 days for me.
For me, the past 4 days. I started Saturday.
No, yesterday I watched 4 episodes.
No, I started
4 hours of prestige television.
So today's Wednesday. Yeah, I did start Saturday. It's an amazing show. So yeah, we rewatched it for this to get a kind of a fresh take on it. And Moses, kind of what were your thoughts the first time around, and then how do you feel about it this time around?
I loved it the first time around. I thought it was really well written. And I was impressed because this was a show that, of course, I knew. I've known about Watchmen for years. I just said I've owned the book for years, never finished it though, and for many reasons. And I also was just when the show was coming out, none of the promotional material grabbed me, and I heard good things, but I was not compelled to really watch it. And I remember people I follow online and content creators were talking about it, but I was never drawn to watch it. And when you told me you watched it, I was still like, you know what, it's not my thing. Whatever. I'm happy you liked it, Ryan. But you suck anyway, so who cares? But then I saw your Letterboxd review, and you started describing it to me, and I was like, holy shit, I need to watch this now. There's words you used to draw me in, like a little puppet. You know what it is, generational trauma, that the show's about generational trauma. And that, I was like,
So good, yeah. It sinks in, that's an interesting idea.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
And so I watched it. I watched it very quickly. I watched it over the span of 2 or 3 days.
2 days, yeah.
Yeah.
It was really short. I remember you blasting through it.
I blasted through it. And I thought it was fantastic. I gave it 5 stars on Letterboxd, and this time around I gave it 5 stars again. But I do have some questions about it. Some minor critiques. More of them, Ryan. You know I have to bring up critiques.
Yeah, of course.
I'm allowed. And most of them actually have to do with the final episode.
Wow. Actually, I have 1 or 2 things. Actually, no. Do I? I don't know.
I think a critical consensus-wise and public consensus, from what I've seen, is that people do think that the finale is quite a weak episode in some parts compared to how good the second half of the show is.
Oh, that element I definitely disagree with.
You think it's?
I think, and we've talked about this before. Episode 5 on, every episode to me is fantastic.
Yeah, no, and the final episode is fantastic, but I do have some issues with it.
There's one issue I have with it. I have.
Do you want to get into it now, or how we're going to discuss this?
Plot hole. No. We'll get to that later.
Okay.
So for me,
I'm very iffy about the term plot hole, by the way. So I'm very interested to see what you have to say, because the term plot hole is thrown around in
no, it is
movie and film, TV and film discussion forums on YouTube and stuff. It's thrown around so much that people don't know what it means anymore.
No, it's definitely it's definitely
no one knows. People are always misusing the term MacGuffin. It's just or like a MacGuffin now when people are critiquing stuff online, they will throw that around to be like any object in a film. And that's not what a MacGuffin is.
No, but
any plot device is a MacGuffin.
It's definitely a plot hole and definitely like something I didn't even think about the first time, and I was like, wait a minute, wouldn't this be like that? But we'll get to it.
But that's also why we rewatched this, because it's a very dense show with so many twists and turns, which is very Damon Lindelof, which we can get into. And I wanted to see on a rewatch if all of those twists and turns, knowing how they pan out, if it holds up. And I think that was my main thing going into this rewatch of the show.
Okay. So for me, I saw this, like I said, the first time in early May. I read the book for the first time a couple years ago, and I thought it was an excellent book. And then I saw the show came out. I was actually really looking forward to it. I waited till it was all out, bought it, and then during quarantine, it was something I watched because I finally had free time. Before watching it, I reread the book, which I think everyone should read. I think it's an amazing book. And then, something I loved about the show the first time, because the first time I watched it, I was blown away. I thought it was and still is for me in my top 5 TV shows of all time. And I think that like what the show does so well is it takes on like the legacy and the tone of the original graphic novel and updates it for today while also continuing on character arcs and developments. And I think that's such a strength.
And that's something we're also going to talk about in next week's episode.
Yeah, we are. And like, I think this is like, I think it's such an amazing TV show. And the first time was such a joy because I was kind of discovering it. And the second time that wasn't there, but I think on the rewatch, I enjoyed it even more because seeing the little notes of foreshadowing or hinting of things or the way that things connect back around, I got more out of it because I knew the plot. I knew the twists and turns.
They foreshadow so heavily. Yeah. By the way, full spoilers.
Yeah.
Full spoilers. We always do that, but I'll say it again. Full spoilers. They foreshadow so heavily the fact that Cal is Dr. Manhattan.
Only once or twice, but the thing is, you never think of it because you would never think that kind of character would be.
You never think of it, but they do.
That's why it's so good.
Heavily foreshadow it.
And it's just like it's. So the second time around, I think this is like genuinely an amazing piece of television. I think one episode in particular is a work of art.
We disagree on what the best episodes are.
We do. So how I think we should do this is, I think we should like go episode by episode, and then at the end kind of say this is what episodes we think are the best and why.
I know which episode's the best.
No, you're wrong.
Not wrong. It's my opinion, dickhead.
No. Well, yeah, exactly. You're wrong. Opinions aren't, opinions are facts.
Everything is actually objective, and my opinion is the most objective.
Yeah, of course. All right, so episode 1, it's a setup episode essentially. I mean, you meet Angela. A lot of police brutality
in this episode.
Yeah, a lot. Coming mainly from Angela.
Yeah, no, this
which is surprising.
One thing I wrote down in my notes for this is that the show's world building in terms of the depiction of a show in of a world where the country's had a liberal president for like 30 years. Is for like 35 years is very interesting because Robert Redford's president in this universe, and you see, for example, that like police officers have to call in to have permission to use their guns, and whatnot. And the police are regulated completely differently, and you see the repercussions of like a liberal world on society. And that I find is very interesting. I had some more notes on that. I'll look it up. But in terms of the representation of the police in this, I found very interesting.
Yeah, I did too, and I had more thoughts on that in some coming episodes, specifically about the chief, Judd Crawford. But what I really liked about this episode was how when you go back and rewatch it now, when Judd and his wife are like super friendly with them and getting along and like talking to them and all that, it feels so false now. Like there's this element of like creepiness and shadiness that I kind of enjoyed this, like, you know, watching the second go around. And even meeting Angela for the first time, like, I liked how they set up her anger and rage as like her defining characteristic, and kind of the ways in which she like kind of gave a disregard for rules or regulations. She just did things. She just did it. And this episode also features kind of one of the two only action sequences the show has, which is kind of the storming of that what's it called, of like that ranch. And that's actually one of my favorite pieces of can't remember. No, that's the next episode. But one of my favorite parts of the show is in this house. There's a piece of production design. There's a poster of like a superhero, the dollar bill, like stopping a black woman. Caricature. Yeah, with a racist caricature of a black woman, of like stopping her from like doing something. And Angela gives it a look of disgust. And then later on in episode 6, you see like when that's being premiered by the Minutemen, and like how that makes Will upset. And I like to, even from a small moment like that, small piece of production design, the show's already setting up a link in terms of like Angela's kind of reliving elements of her grandfather's past. And again, I like we'll come back to this idea a lot of generational trauma, but like even from then, I thought that was a really clever setup in terms of like this is where it's going. Like even from that first one, Angela's like reality is still blended with Will's, and I really like that in the first episode.
Yeah, I agree with that. The first episode, you're right, is a lot of setup. It's very good setup. And great note. And yeah, it's a really strong setup episode.
Yeah, it is. It's very, very good. And then see, episode 2 to me shows how like why the show is so good. Sorry.
I think it's still set up, I feel, episode 2.
It is, but the great thing about season 2 is it does what the show does so well, which is like, it'll give you one answer and then it will ask 2 more questions. Yeah. So a couple things are actually revealed, but even more, you're by the end of that's questioning it more.
That's the point in the show where it's really like, there are 2 points in the show where it's just like, let us bombard the viewer with all these questions and wait to pay them off later. And that starts with episode 2. And then around episode 7, you also get that again, I feel. What is happening? Oh, my God.
Yeah. Because in episode 2 is when, actually, episode 2 is a very good episode. So let's start at the beginning, which is something similar to what they were doing in *Da 5 Bloods*. But, you know, the show came out before. And I love it. I love this opening, which is, the African-American soldiers are walking through World War I, and the Germans have dropped notes on them about basically why should they be fighting for a racist America.
That is great. And that's a real thing that they did. And that's a real level.
Yeah. And I love that they did that. Oh, Moses, what are we talking about? We forgot. Come on, we got to get more organized.
What?
Episode 1, the Tulsa Massacre.
Oh, shit. I'm an idiot.
Come on. Stupid. Come on. Yeah, what are we doing?
What a powerful opening to the show.
Yeah.
And also it's a real
event. It's a real event.
I will admit my failure, but in all earnestness, I never went to school in America, so I have no whatever. I didn't know that happened. That was an event that I didn't know happened. And
the thing is, it's
teaching of American history, because I don't think they teach that in U.S. schools.
They don't. So this is a real event, and like the show is set like in an alternate future or alternate kind of version of this world, but like that was a very real event, and like for the show to.
I read that it's the only case of American aerial assault.
Yeah.
Because there were planes flying and shooting at other Americans.
When they were dropping like bombs from the planes the first time I watched it, I was so surprised. So I think that's like a very, like, it's a great way of basically showing you what the show's really about, which is like racial injustice, as well as how everything really revolves around this moment for Will and eventually for Angela. And to start it off with that, but not only that, but to start it with Will experiencing and watching that film about, you know, the marshal that catches the bad sheriff, which again has a lot of ties to
Bass Reeves.
the actual show, right? And Bass Reeves. Angela, hooded, like black cop, takes down bad racist sheriff.
Mm-hmm.
That's what happens in the show. But also, like, it sets up that idea of masks. And you know, Lindelof has said a lot about how the idea of masks and people hiding behind them is a major proponent of the show and of the book. And I like
Bass Reeves
how
is a real person, by the way.
right, and how they set that up for Will to be impressioned by that, to say trust the law, believe in it. Again, sets up kind of the tragedy of his life later.
What's the statement? Trust in the
yeah, trust in the law.
Trust in the law. Yeah.
Yeah.
That kid is a wonderful actor, and he is in Stranger Things.
He was good. Really?
He's like a little kid in season 2, but he's very memorable. I just remember.
But to start with, like, that and kind of what that signifies later for Will, and then of course the event itself is horrifying, and the way that they capture it is like very visceral and horrifying in and of itself. And like it's kind of bad to say it, but it's a very good way of opening the show, because everything is about this moment, and everything is about moments like this in American history. The show is about that. It's just like, this isn't the only case of this kind of violence. Like, there were lots of this throughout American history, and it feeds and it feeds into people's psyche today. And I like to start with that is like really well done, I think.
Yes, and I just forgot what I wanted to say. Oh, yes. I'm not sure I'm completely enamored with actually how they shot the opening sequence. There's nothing wrong with it. It captures a lot of the chaos, but I feel like there might have been a better way to shoot it. It almost sometimes the jittery camera and how much of they covered how they covered it in terms of the blocking and stuff. And also the coloring, because it has kind of a sepia tone to be the past and whatnot. It kind of feels cheap compared to how high budget the rest of the show feels.
Oh, but I didn't get that impression.
It's not anything bad, but I was just it's one of those things. I was like, there might have been a better way to do this that didn't come off as like, you know.
Yeah.
But it seemed lower budget than what the rest of the show is. For some reason.
Yeah.
We're back. My co-host is incompetent. No, just kidding. His iPad shut off for some reason, and so he left the chat for this call. But now he's back and beautiful as ever.
Thanks, Moses. I appreciate that.
So we were talking about episode 1 in the Tulsa Massacre, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
And I think we were wrapping up our conversation with that. Getting ready to move on to episode 2.
So episode 2 starts off with, like I said earlier, the Germans sending messages or flying planes that dropped the papers onto African-American soldiers, basically saying, why are you fighting for a racist America? America doesn't treat you well or respect you. Mm-hmm. And I like how, again, generational trauma comes into play. This is where his dad begins to kind of understand the suffering he's going through. Will Reeves' his father. And then obviously that kind of goes down to Will Reeves and so on and so forth. So I thought that was a very clever opening to the episode. Gives you some more context into that family, as well as it highlights really what the show's going to explore in terms of how it tackles race relations in America. Mm-hmm. But to me, the best moment of this episode is, so another aspect that the way the show emulates a graphic novel is it has a TV show within a TV show, the same way the graphic novel had a comic book within a comic book. The Minutemen. That is a parody of Zack Snyder's interpretation of Watchmen with its gratuitous sex and
specifically the action sequence in one of the episodes where it does the very Zack Snyder.
That's this episode.
Yeah, where it's like punch, and then slow motion.
Yeah,
so that's like classic Zack Snyderisms. Like very overt. It's not subtext; it is the text.
Right. So I like So it is parodying. I like that. So it is parodying it. But as Angela's driving up to Crawford's house, Hooded Justice, the show's interpretation of it, the show within a show's interpretation of it, is narrating, and he's like, and it's something about, he's talking about masks again, and he makes the comment of like, oh, somebody asked me like why, you know, why I can't remember what it was, but it had something to do with like why he wears masks and why people wear masks.
Yeah.
Due to like they've got this rage inside them, and it cuts to Angela driving, and I love that voiceover because it is perfectly setting up for like, this is basically Angela's, again, like I said earlier, defining characteristic. It's just her anger and her rage, but she doesn't know what because she doesn't know her family history yet. And I love that. And then
Also,
right after that,
her rage just doesn't have to do with her family history. It has to
I think
do.
it does.
Partially, but also look at her background, which they explore in episode 7.
Oh yeah.
There's
all of it.
A lot of that rage comes. You would think a lot of the rage comes from that. There is the generational aspect that we can touch upon, but a lot of it also comes from the fact that her parents were murdered when she was a child. She was raised in what seems to be an abusive orphanage, and then her grandmother comes to take her away, and
has a heart attack.
And she has a heart attack, which very convenient that she gets a heart attack the same day she picks him up.
Yeah.
Great moment in the episode. I can't remember the song they used, but that is a great moment in episode 7.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know. It's Every Time You Go Away by Hall Notes.
That's what it is. No, great song. It's very cheerful, and then you just have the view from inside the car, and you just see her bam in the background, and you just have like, damn it.
No, you're totally right. The rage does come from that as well. And then the show does it, like its pattern, like I said earlier, of reveal more questions, which is the reveal that the chief Judd was secretly a racist, and like that was a whole new element. Like that, I loved how they did that originally. Plus, how it serves as an allegory for like the police here. It's just like in modern day, like how the police, they've got this at times, well, before everything that's happened, right? The idea that some are nice, even the nice ones, right? The sheen of, hospitality and all that. What's underneath that is a history of racism and abuses of power. And like,
well, here they are right now, Ryan. You're too vocal. They're coming to stop you.
They're coming for me. But I love how that's emulated with Judd. Seems like such a nice dude, but secretly he's a racist. And
great performance by Don Johnson.
Great performance.
Great setup and payoff in the first episode, because there's that moment where he's like, I loved Black Oklahoma, and then he comes home.
Yeah.
Like, I thought you said you hated Black Oklahoma. It's like,
yeah.
Hey,
yeah. We see you, Damon.
I see you. Also, I was thinking about Don Johnson this week as well, because in Knives Out, his character, he has a line that's about like how he's a conservative but pretends to be a liberal, and he's like, have you seen Hamilton? It's amazing. Like, which is funny because they released Hamilton last week on Disney Plus, and I'm seeing all these people on Letterboxd give it 5 stars, and I'm like, it's that character. But, by the way, I watched it. I really liked Hamilton. I always think of that now. It's very funny because it is I can get into a whole discussion on fake liberalism and how it has to do with Broadway and how the fake progressivism of Broadway, but that's a different discussion.
That's a different episode. I would actually like to hear that.
No, super interesting. I have a lot to say because Broadway seems to have a lot of progressive ideas, but it's completely curated towards wealthy New Yorkers. So how progressive can it be?
Good point. Very good point.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to Watchmen.
Let's get back to Watchmen.
So yeah, I loved like that allegory for modern day police, and it seems even more relevant after what's happened recently. So I thought that was like a great part of episode 2. Any thoughts on episode 2 for you?
I think you've covered most of what I want to say. Here, let me check my notes if I have anything from episode 2. Is Senator Keene? Senator Keene is introduced in episode 2, right?
No, episode 3.
No, he is in episode 2, but isn't he he's at the house?
Oh, that's right. He's at the house. Yeah, he's at the house. He briefly talks to Angela. Oh, and episode 2 is also is the reveal that Will is the grandfather to Angela.
Yep.
So like again,
yeah, it is.
Yeah, that's episode 2, right? Because at the end of it, he gets taken away, but like you find out he's their grandfather, and I love that was the great detail.
That Henry Louis Gates Jr. is the Secretary of Treasury of the United States of America, and he's on that screen because that guy has a show
I noticed that.
called Finding Your Roots, which is all about finding your family history.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
a historian. I told you about this.
Yeah.
About now. Senator Keene, I feel like his performance and the casting choice was very inspired. You can disagree, by Beto O'Rourke.
Who's that?
Do you not remember Beto O'Rourke? He ran for senator of Texas, and then he ran for president, even though no one really wanted him to.
I didn't hear about him at all.
Oh no, you probably just forgot because he was very unmemorable. But like people were very excited for him to run for senator, and he almost beat Ted Cruz, but he lost. And then he had all this hype behind him, and he was this young he kind of looks like the actor in Watchmen.
Yeah.
Kind of young, cool guy. Rolls up his sleeves, and he ran for president, and he completely misread people's enthusiasm for him, and his campaign flopped hard, and he was one of the first major candidates to drop out.
Okay.
And I just thought that casting choice was very inspired. I can maybe pull up the picture for you, to show better. They don't look exactly alike, but I feel like there was an element of inspiration of just like
similar.
This young progressive, like
quote unquote progressive.
Yeah, from the South.
Yeah.
You see what I'm like? Do you see, especially his character. I don't actually have any strong opinions on Beto O'Rourke, but I just thought that was very funny. Beto O'Rourke, my knowledge is not a super white supremacist, but
no, that is good. That is good on the show's part of communicating that.
And like timeline wise, when they would have made the show and cast it all, they would have been aware of Beto O'Rourke. So I do have a theory that there was an element of inspiration.
Yeah.
He was popular around the 2018 elections.
Okay.
For the Senate, so I was like, I see.
Okay.
Little side note. I wrote that in my notes.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I like that. Any other thoughts on episode 2?
There's a lot of great transitions there in all episodes, but I wrote this around the time I was watching episode 2. I appreciate some good transitions. That is all I had to say about episode 2.
The only thing I wanted to mention before we move on to the next episode, because that's kind of a different realm.
Yes, I love that about the show, by the way.
Yeah, I do too. Is 7th Cavalry itself. I love the idea that the show takes that, like, okay, Rorschach gave his journal to a right-wing media.
Oh, yeah.
And then the idea that the right-wing media took a sociopath's ideas, and even though you didn't, like, you can assume Rorschach was like a racist and right-wing.
Oh, he's racist, right-wing, misogynist,
You never forwardly outsee that in the book. And I thought it was interesting how they took someone who was was definitely right wing, and then the media corrupted it further and took his words as like a calling cry for the KKK, and then they transitioned themselves into that. I thought that was a brilliant piece of like political commentary of the way right wing media does that today. And I just thought they don't draw your attention to it. It's just a clever detail as to how
they turn Pepe the Frog into a white supremacist symbol for the alt-right?
Yeah.
Or the OK sign, which is present in the show, by the way. The Cyclops thing.
It does.
There's a reason they removed that call sign from Call of Duty.
Shit.
And I also think it's funny that the show did that because a lot of people's favorite character from Watchmen is Rorschach. And people were upset by this because they don't like seeing what a character did. You're allowed to like morally wrong characters. There's nothing wrong with it. But people were very annoyed to see their favorite character, who they thought was maybe good, because for some reason, people on the fringes of society are drawn to the characters like Rorschach. No, not even people on the fringes of society. Just lonely neckbeards are drawn to characters like Rorschach and Tyler Durden, who's also a very misunderstood character, and for some reason people think is a good person that they want to aspire to be. And so a lot of people were drawn to Rorschach for the wrong reasons, and Alan Moore has been saying for years that people should not be idolizing Rorschach.
Yeah.
He is a bad person.
Yeah, and to me, I don't know. I think that makes perfect sense how the show took that and progressed that idea about who he was and how his ideals were interpreted later. I love that they don't call attention to it. No one outwardly explains why they're wearing Rorschach masks. You just connect the dots yourself, and it's
little
great.
to no discussion of Rorschach throughout the entire show.
Yeah, or Night Owl, or Dan.
Yeah, those two characters are. You learn that he's in prison.
Yeah.
And with Rorschach, you just know that people don't really give a shit about him anymore because he died in the 80s.
Yep. And I like that. So episode 3 is the beginning of what I think the show does super well, which like the show has like a through line in its story, and Angela is the main character, but there are like 3 or 4 episodes where it focuses on one character, or it focuses on like a pair of characters, and it's all about their story and then how it relates back to the main narrative at hand. So
I love that element of the show. It's incredibly refreshing. Oh, fuck. By the way, about episode 2, I forgot to mention.
Yes.
So I watched the show this time around on my rewatch with my father, who I had to read the comic, the graphic novel. He really enjoyed the show and the graphic novel. And one of his notes, one of the things he said about the show is that the bit where Will Reeves gets picked up in the car at the end of episode 2.
Yeah.
He was like, "That was cool."
That's funny.
So that's my father's analytical insight into the show. He was like, "That's cool."
That's key. It was cool. So many cool parts of the show. So good.
And but going to episode 3, I adore the way the show does transition around in terms of like the show is not about this anymore. Like the first 2 episodes feel like a kind of a procedural crime thing set in the Watchmen universe.
Yeah.
But then it focused on Angela's story, and there's the whole race element, and then it kind of switches to tell the story of Laurie Blake, and that's super interesting. And
it does.
It's really fun. And it keeps the show fresh. And it's by the end of the show, it's completely different from what it was at the start in terms of not tone, but like like it's not about police anymore.
Yeah, I think that I love one of the things I love about this show is how it carries on original characters' arcs, and I love the idea that Laurie's taken the comedian's last name. I think that's super interesting in terms of like she now sees the world the way that her dad did, so she's adopted her like his last name now, and you can see that she sees the world in that kind of pessimistic, taken as is kind of way, because she's taken her vigilantism and her own anger about how she feels about her mom pushing her into vigilantism and superheroism, that her job now is getting rid of and arresting people like that as almost as a way to get back at her parents about how like they've basically controlled and ruled her life. Even to this day, I thought that was such a brilliant like decision for her character, and I love the fact that she keeps an owl, so it's like a part of Dan is still with her.
Yeah, I like it. Very, very beaten on your head on the nose. Oh my god, I love the shot where talking about on the nose. I absolutely love that shot in her apartment with the which is basically the cover of the comic. This cover of the
and her
head is covering
her own
image, part of the screen. And speaking of Laurie's character, I you probably disagree with me, but I the performance is by Jean Smart is great. Really enjoy her, but I didn't always feel like I was watching Laurie from the graphic novel. I had a hard time making the mental connection.
I didn't have that person. Issue.
I didn't always feel like I was watching the same person.
To me it felt like it was Laurie, but with like more of the comedian in her. Now that she's kind of accepted that fact later in life. Honestly, my favorite part of this episode is the structure. Is her like sitting in a booth and telling a joke to Dr. Manhattan, and the joke is an allegory for how like the Watchmen's lives have gone since the end of the book, and
I don't love the structure.
I love that in that episode.
The problem with it,
I love that.
stretching out that joke throughout the episode, I'm like, I want to follow.
Yeah, at times.
And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
I get interrupted by this joke, which is cut up in
I see what you mean.
so I can't follow it as well as I should. Not that I don't get the jokes.
Yeah.
It's like just to be like, oh, what did she say last time? So
Yeah.
make that connection.
I get that.
Not too much. It's not too bad. It doesn't ruin the episode. But I don't love it, and it kind of reminds me of how the main reason I don't love the Black Freighter storyline in the comic, because there's no problem with having that in it. It's that it feels too disjointed and separate to the point where it's like you're always like, wait, what happened last time? Like,
that is true with the comic book in there, and the joke at times is like that. I think it was like once, but the other times I had no like.
It's not a real
problem.
issue. I still followed it, but I don't know.
I thought it was really great
because you didn't bring up the structure yourself.
Well, I like the allegory for what happened to each of them, and like even though some of them did good, they still ended up going to hell for like their deepest character flaws in her narrative. And then when she shows up, she frames it in terms of God's forgotten about her, and then in the sense that the brick hits his head now, and I love what that means for her, because it's like she's kind of the forgotten one, because she never really did anything with her life. In her eyes, she stayed in the same place, just on the other side of the coin, and like that's her fantasy of like, I want the joke to be on somebody else instead of it's always being on me, which is again the comedian's mentality. And also, like they didn't give I love that for that reason. I thought that had so much to say about her and who she's become in her relationship with the others, and just like I love that.
They didn't give Laurie her classic mole. I was just thinking about that. It's part of her character.
I guess not. Yeah.
Graphic novel, and it's curious that they didn't even bother to give her that in the show. Show ruined. Damon Lindelof fired.
Yeah.
0 out of 10. This show SJW's too political.
Yeah, clearly. Yeah, fuck this show.
The Watchmen I grew up with was not political.
That argument makes me so angry.
That's so funny. It's so funny. No, it's so funny that I see criticism of the show being too political, and they're like, "Well, yeah, the comic was also political, but it was more subtle." And it's like, no, you have a problem with it being about race because you're insecure about, and you're so fragile about the fact that you're white. White fragility, right?
So
white
annoying.
Fragility is hilarious to me.
Yeah. But anyways, I thought that it was a really great episode. It set up a lot and actually developed Laurie's character. I like where she's been, how she's ended up. Makes a lot of sense for her character.
Did you see the Rotten Tomato score for the public, the audience score for Rotten Tomatoes?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like 40%?
So low. Yeah, so low.
Talking about review bombing. We'll
talk
about that next week as well.
Yeah, we will. Sure shit, we will. So anyways, I thought episode 3 was really strong, but of the character focused episodes, it's actually my least favorite.
Wait, what episodes are not character focused?
In terms of that structure, like we said, where it's like one person each.
Oh, it's your least favorite in that sense?
Because to me, 5, 6, and 8 are about like one character, or like a set of characters.
Yeah, you're right. I don't know how I would rank episode 3. I don't have a ranking for all the episodes. I just have a top 3 ranking.
Yeah, me too.
Episode 3 does not fall in that.
No, me neither.
The bit I do love in this episode is that moment in between Angela and Laurie. Yeah. When she goes, she's giving her big speech about how she eats heroes for breakfast, and it's very cliche, and the dialogue's on the nose. And then you just have it's very stereotypical of tough badass characters, but she just goes like, "Ooh, am I supposed to be scared?" But it's very cool. The delivery is fantastic.
Yeah, Regina King is amazing in this show.
Yes, she was great in If Beale Street Could Talk. She was great in A Cinderella Story with Hilary Duff back in the day.
I haven't seen that.
That is the Citizen Kane of the early 2000s. How dare you?
She's great in Friday. Very good.
I have not seen Friday. I didn't know she was in that.
Yeah, very briefly, barely in it.
I don't get her career. What has she been in? I mean, she's in If Beale Street Could Talk. She's in this. She's in
I'm not sure beyond
a
that, to be quite
Cinderella
honest.
story. Regina King. I'm curious. She's so good, and I haven't. She's in Ray. That's right. I knew that she was.
Oh yeah.
She was in a lot of like romantic comedy stuff, like as the black supporting character. Miss
Yeah, she is.
Congeniality, A Cinderella Story.
In Miss Congeniality, yeah.
Why in the world was she in The Big Bang Theory? God damn it.
Yeah.
Yeah, not in that much.
Okay, well.
Of course, she has some taste. She was in Planes, the
God.
spinoff.
Well, she's from far away. So,
yeah.
Anyways, I think that I like the character focus on Laura. I think they did a really good job. That scene with Angela and her is very good. Not really much else on the episode for me. I like what they did with her character is all.
Yeah, I do like that interaction after she yeets the coffin into the
the grave. So then next episode 4, unless you have do you have any more comments on episode 3? Any more notes?
No.
Okay. Episode 4. So
sorry, I have to laugh. I just got an email from the residence I was living at. Which I'm not living there anymore, and my rent there ran out, and I had some stuff left over, which some of it you picked up. But I just got an email about some of the stuff left there, and there's a legal paper that they ask if they should destroy or send to me, and their wording is, should we destroy it alongside the rest of your stuff or send it to? And that's very like, boom, destroy.
Yeah.
Boy,
that's such funny language.
Burn it.
Yeah.
Like an
Eviscerate
incinerator
beyond capacity.
Yeah, torch it. I had to laugh because I just saw that email.
No, that is funny.
Very funny. That choice of words it's not like should we throw it away, should we destroy it. Going back to the show, I think we can move on to episode 4.
Yeah.
And
so episode
honesty,
4,
what is episode 4 about? I can't remember.
So the opening is those two farmers. And again,
the introduction of the best actor in the show, perhaps.
Really, Lady True.
Lady True, I love the performance. I'm gonna look up the actress.
Yeah, she's a great character.
Also, I love the performance. I think it's pitch perfect.
Yeah.
And it's Hong Chau, and also the young woman who plays her daughter/mother, also fantastic. And I've told you this before. Her glasses, her mother's glasses, are so goddamn sick. I am jealous I could not pick them up. Those are cool ass glasses. And without me telling my dad that I thought those were cool, he made a joke and was like, "You should wear those glasses." Because I have, if you watch the video or see the thumbnail of the podcast art, I have big glasses. And no, I was just like those like big butterfly wing glasses, basically.
They fit her really well.
No, I'm like very jealous that she can pull those off. It's sick. But no, I love the performance of Lady True. One of my favorite. I love that opening.
She's great.
It starts so random.
With it keeps that allegory with the eggs.
Of course. The eggs everywhere. Eggs.
Which eggs in the show. If I remember Lindelof saying correctly,
we
the eggs
to the
were
podcast.
are like a heavy. It's like it's a symbol that pops up in the first episode. This episode, the egg at the end of the show.
It's meant to be like time in the comic. The clock.
Yeah, like the clocks. The recurring image of the clock. It's the recurring image of the egg. Because in the show, in the book, the recurring image of the clock was countdown to midnight, which is a term for like nuclear holocaust, basically.
Hell yeah.
And then
give me that nuclear holocaust.
The egg is a constant reminder of like one, it's working towards obviously the finale with Angela, but it's also that it carries that idea of like eggs are fragile things, but like where they like, to me again, it connects to that idea of generational trauma and like something that's passed down, given birth to. Yeah. But it's also a fragile thing that's easily broken, and like how like it symbolizes family, because it's a chicken doesn't just lay one egg, it lays minis. It symbolizes family, all these things. So like I think it's a really interesting like visual motif, metaphor. Like it's a consistent thing. And different characters at different times like interact with them, and I just thought
It's
that
a
this was
MacGuffin.
cool.
It's not a MacGuffin. That's
Yeah,
not
it's
what a
not
MacGuffin means.
Um,
People need to stop using that term on the internet when
so
they don't know
it's
what it means.
so it's a
I get very
motif.
frustrated. Sorry.
It's a motif that I think again like it's a different object, but it carries on the spirit of what was being done in the graphic novel. But also within this scene, it's the idea of eggs, infertility, which strongly relates into Lady True's storyline. Yeah. And then that honestly, watching it over again, I love this scene so much more because
I love the opening of this episode because I also love the performance of the farmers. They're really good.
Yeah, very good.
They're not in the show at all for the rest of it, but they're just They leave
just
an
that
impression.
Opening.
They leave an impression.
Yeah, they do.
No, they have this weird song. It's like a sitcom montage. In the opening.
Bee Gees song.
It's a what is happening, and then has a hard cut to the doorbell ringing, and you finally get the introduction of. But it's not the best performance in terms of a drama. Of course, Regina.
But
King
it's a fun performance.
There, but it's like my favorite in the show. It's so,
it's a great performance.
So well.
Yeah.
Also, we haven't talked at all about Ozymandias the whole time, or should I say?
No, we're going to
the random man living off some countryside.
I think that as like before he becomes involved with the main plot, we'll talk about him because his whole story I think is easier to talk about in one go.
Yeah.
And so I love it because so these parents are basically like without a kid, they're infertile, and Lady True brings them a child, a legacy to trade them for something else. And essentially that's True's storyline is her mom didn't have kids, got an artificial child, right? That's not properly hers.
Her mom couldn't have. Her mom?
Well, we don't know that, right? But it's a similar thing. Basically, an artificial kid given back to a parents who like it is their legacy.
It's not even an artificial kid, though.
To True. Which one?
Not just with Lady True, it was just insemination.
Well, yeah, it's a miracle. She stole. But yeah, but you know what I mean. I would choose better words. She stole his semen, and then the parents didn't have their consent in having the kid be born.
She stole it. Yeah, there's a weird situation around that, but I wouldn't call it an artificial child.
Right, but it's the creation of life that is in some way connected to like a lie, a deceit, a thievery, right?
Yes, but I would choose your words more wisely.
Then fine. Then take what I just said. Take that, and that emulates her storyline, and then she returns to her dad the same way the baby returns to her dad, and it's the idea of legacy, and like again, which is a very like heavy proponent of the show, a very important theme, and I just like that our introduction to her is kind of foreshadowing her own journey and where she's come from. And I thought that was really great. I thought she had a really great character introduction.
What else happens in this episode?
So the other aspects of it are very like detective kind of like aspects of the show. It's a very good in between episode. True and Angela and all them meet for the first time, and that's when you find out that Will and True are working together at the end of the episode. And there's a great little bit between True and her daughter, who's actually her clone mother. Yeah, man, that was so good the second time around, knowing that it's her mom. The way she said she's afraid and whatnot.
No, that's
towards
not
the end of the episode when she has nightmares. Yeah, it is.
That's not in this episode. It's later.
No, that's this episode.
But no, they have that discussion. They have that discussion in episode 7. Mm-mm. Yes.
No, her and Angela do, but True and her mom have it.
I thought you were talking about the Angela and.
No, True and her daughter have it. Okay. That interaction, that in this episode, I thought that was really strong, and I loved the setup from Will of being like she doesn't know it yet, but I basically destroyed her whole life, and like she doesn't understand why yet, and I like that setup. Yeah, and it's very ominous, and I like that because again, that's good foreshadowing of like, oh, he does, but like you also understand why kind of thing.
Yeah,
and like. It just, that was one of those moments I remember sticking out in my mind of the second time around being like, oh shit, like that hits a lot like that hits harder now knowing what's coming.
Yep. Otherwise,
Um,
we should move on to episode 5.
yeah. So episode 5
It's my
is a
second.
great episode.
It's my second favorite, or my favorite episode of the entire season. I absolutely Looking Glass. If my favorite performance is the Lady True performance, then my favorite. But the performances from Tim Blake Nelson is also so good.
It's
My
so
favorite,
good.
My favorite character is probably Looking Glass.
Yeah,
I
he's so great.
absolutely love this character from the get-go.
Yeah.
He's fantastic. And this whole episode is amazing.
Yeah.
And the opening of this episode makes me want HBO to, even though it would not be that satisfying because we already have a movie, and the show shows that you should make legacy series and not just remake the original. But I would love a series with some of the same people, some of the same people making a series of the comic. Because that opening, I love seeing.
It's really so good.
The 1985 of this universe was like. Did you see the top knots?
Yeah, you see the top knots from the book.
Yeah, and you just see that squid, and it looks amazing, and it's like, wow.
Yeah, I love the opening of this episode because the look also, of the squid and getting to see that was great.
It took me a long time to make the connection, and didn't take me that long, but I never thought in that opening, oh, this is a character we've already seen. I just presumed it was a random character.
I did too at first.
I wasn't like, oh, this must be someone we know. I never made that assumption.
Yeah.
And when it hit me shortly afterwards, I was like, holy shit, that's amazing. So that whole bit is amazing. You've got Careless Whisper by
their show's rendition of it is so good later.
It's fantastic.
I love the show's rendition of it.
Is it on the official soundtrack? I don't think so.
It is.
What?
It is.
I need to add it then.
It's so good. But anyways, I love that opening because of the squid. That's cool. But also like the way they set up his character on the rewatch, there's so much that's brilliant about the opening. Mm-hmm. First of all, the fact that he's in a mirror house is great. That's why he's Looking Glass. That's
how he survived as well. That's in terms of
right. It protected him in the same way that the mirror that he puts as mask on his face, he believes protects him. But also, I love the metaphor of he looked at himself in the reflection when he got, when that girl betrayed him. So he doesn't want to look in his reflection anymore. So instead,
it's like, oh shit.
Yeah. So like he can't stand to look in the mirror anymore. So when people look at him, the mirror's on the exterior. He's shut off from it. And I love that of like, it's a barrier between him and others, this layer of like mistrust because of what happened to him. But on top of that, I love how the opening with the girl is a metaphor for later in terms of how he was lured into something, into believing something, and then what he believed in like ended up being false and not true. And that's exactly what happens later when he finds out that the squid was orchestrated by Vite and like that heartbreak.
He's been living in fear for his entire
that's his life. It defines him.
And then at the end, he decides to continue living in fear because it is too hard to recognize the fact that your life has been a lie this entire time.
All of it, yeah.
So
the thing that's come to define you as a human being, to find out that's not true anymore. You can't live with that fact.
He'd rather continue to be defined by this fear that he knows isn't true than come to terms with the fact that what his life has been defined by has been all built upon a lie.
Yeah.
I love that. With the box coming back for it.
Yeah, I love that ending.
Also, this episode is like a movie in its own right. Like it's
it tells one character's story.
That of course ties into the main plot with the Angela.
Yeah, okay. And you get you get a background, and this is the reveal that the Senator's part of the 7th Cavalry, and the reveal that like they've been working both sides. They orchestrated the White Knight, like that kind of breakdown. Right. And like I just love, and I watched the show for the second time with Alyssa. She loved it. And she loved the book. My girlfriend. And like she loved it, but I remember she was like, "Why did?" Thanks. I remember
very nice.
when she is when when Wade betrayed Angela. She was like, "Well, why would he do that?" And I said, well, think about it. Like, your entire life is now proven to be a lie. You have no trust in people or the world around you anymore. So at your lowest moment, knowing that like when they might kill her anyways, you're going to kind of give her up. And I like that when he does, it's kind of when he realizes like, oh shit, like there's still some humanity in me. There's still something to believe in, because he kind of regrets it. And I love that turn of him finding out like the horror of it. And like, again, the way that his like fate system's like wrecked in the same way that it was with that girl and with the this girl he meets at the bar and all that. And like,
I love that his hat,
that.
it has the
hat's
foil
in it.
He
sleeps with the mask partly on.
I don't know if we still plan on doing this, but our Halloween plan is to go as Mirror Glass, and I would go as Mirror Glass.
Looking Glass, like Looking Glass.
Mirror guy.
Yeah.
Looking Glass, and you would go as you would go naked as Dr. Manhattan, obviously.
Yeah.
But no.
Although I don't know. After rewatching, I can't compare. So I'm not really.
Live up. You can't live up to it.
I can't live up. I could do the suit in blue. Yeah, we will.
You could do the suit in blue. You just get a suit dirty because it get blue on it.
Oh yeah. I don't want to do that then. I don't know. We'll figure something out Watchmen related.
You could just wear a t-shirt.
That's true. Yeah, easy enough. But
anyways, you're not black though, so.
Oh yeah. Cultural appropriation.
Oh.
So I do
like that the show points that out. It's funny.
It does. But anyways, so yeah, episode 5 is a great episode kind of for all those reasons. And just like his development, you see that like with his wife, he never fully trusted her or believed in her because of what happened to him with that one girl then, and how it's linked to it's about his trauma. And it's literally about how he hides behind his mask, but he hides. And like I said, with the way he hides behind his mask, he reflects the world around him to choose and live that lie again, which again is reflected in his mask. It's just like, it's brilliant character work in just a span of an hour. It is a film in its own right, and just like, yeah, that idea, like just like the twist in Memento, spoilers for Memento, like you choose to live that lie because that's all you know, and he's defined by his trauma, and like he's one of the few characters that lets his trauma like continue on. He continues to wear the mask. And it's just such a fascinating character like piece.
We're taking very long, and we're coming up with we're talking about the best few episodes coming up, so we should try and hurry this up. Episode 6, I know it's your favorite. Shut up. Let's talk about it.
I had a small orgasm.
Ew.
I think this episode's a work of art. Like, I think it's one of the best episodes of TV ever. One of the best hours of media entertainment of anything ever.
It's really good. Episode 5 is better. Episode 8 is better.
Episode 6 is what the show is. It is brilliant. It is a character piece. It is about the themes of generational racism, the trauma that we've talked about, race relations in America, interpersonal dilemmas and struggles. It's beautifully filmed. A lot of it's in one take with great transitions. It's in black and white that sometimes fades certain things into color for extra effect. It's beautiful. It's a stunning work of art. And the idea that the twist that Will Reeves is Hooded Justice, the original Hooded Justice. And knowing that now when you reread the book, where the hood and the rope comes from is from the lynching, and just like
one of the best.
What I noticed
in popular media.
It is, and one of my favorite.
Are very iffy when you do a big.
Yes, they can be.
And it's not even that much of a retcon because they never did establish who.
No,
who was.
my favorite part of this episode to me though is every time Will Reeves experiences a level of pain or reminded of the anger he feels. That is when they cut in Angela's face. So after he's lynched, when he's getting put into the police force, at the end when when he kills Judge Crawford, like all these experiences, it is hers now as well. Like, and I love that. That's why she fades in. So they're developing her character in tandem with his. She's experiencing his pain, the trauma coming to define her, as well as it's revealing her past about why she has this anger in her. Part of why. But also in terms of the idea that he had to hide being black and put on a mask over a mask. My mic really bad there. I apologize. A mask over a mask. So he puts a white like mask on, which mirrors Angela's, because she puts black on and then he puts the white paint on, which I think is like a great similarity.
I do
but
love
also the contrast shows like
that. It's not symbolism.
It is symbolism, because I think it shows
well,
how
it's
the
not
characters
a symbol.
Symbolizes something.
Yeah.
The action, the paint.
Yes.
Like, so I love that, and how it connects to Angela.
I need to check up on my film studies definition of what symbolism is in media.
Yeah, and I love. There's so many great moments. I mean, the moment where he and his wife are in bed, and he's recounting when he was in Tulsa and he found her as a baby outside it, and like it's in the doorway, and it's in color. It's beautiful and it works, but also like that's his literal doorway to the past, as he's like trying to come to terms with it, but like it's still open and colorized, so it's so vivid for him. The black and white symbolizes that he's not in the time he's in now. He's still living in that moment, because the Tulsa massacre defines him and what he does and who he's become. And I love that aspect. It's so, because there's also that great moment. It's not a great moment, it's a horrifying moment. Hold on. I know I'm just
you
one
are
thing.
Rambling on, man.
No, because it's such a great episode. I'll mention one last thing.
I didn't ramble on about episode 5, and I think that's a great episode. Why did you shut
Okay, but when those cops ask him if he wants to go for a drink, he says no. Then when they drive off, they have the bodies attached, like when they were in Tulsa, and that's in color as well. So it's like when he's remembering Tulsa, it's in color. It's like that's a part of his life he remembers. I'm sorry, like just like watching this episode all over again. The analysis for me was
for those listening at home. This is a rare Ryan moment where he just rambles on for like 15 minutes and doesn't let anyone else talk. And that is also
so good. I apologize, but
this is not something he exclusively does for the podcast. He does this in real life.
Oh, I do this with friends
all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
All the goddamn time.
Especially if it's about something I love.
I love the comparison between Will Reeves and Superman.
Yeah,
that is great.
Yeah,
love that.
Yeah, great. Yeah.
It doesn't feel. It feels like it would. It fits to the world that the graphic novel set up, but I don't love the mesmerism plot.
Oh, I love that, because that's a commentary on how white rich Americans have stepped on the backs of race infighting over the course of the last 200 years as America's come up, and that's how they've become they've stayed in power. And I love that allegory for it. And I think you can't have that idea of racial infighting as another extra proponent to how, white people keep down black people in America. And to me, that's such an essential part of the plot, such an essential part of what the show's trying to say. And the mesmerism, sure, but it's not so unbelievable the way that they do it that to me, I take issue with it. I think it fits very naturally. And I think, again, what it represents to me is so powerful and so important that I feel like you have to have it. So yeah, I that's, that's why I like that. I mean, another cool aspect of the episode is when they're having the fight in the grocery store, and it parallels how different it is with the TV shows.
I love that.
Within a TV
he
show's
crashes
version.
out in the real world, and
he instead of breaking in.
He breaks in.
And that's a beautiful moment as well when he crashes out and it freezes, and you can tell it's Angela's face under the mask, and Cal's trying to reach her to get her to come back, and you see how it's so much like her. You see how she's crying, the pain she's feeling from experiencing memories, but she's got this mask on, which of course symbolizes what she's been going through throughout the show.
I do love at the end of the episode when she's reliving the memories of Will when he's
recently
older.
And
Angela, Regina King, is embodying an older character, and she's just sitting in a chair like an old man. It's very funny.
Yeah.
But she's embodying the old man. It comes off as comedic.
Yeah. A little bit. And then just a few other things, just a couple other notes on this episode, and we can go on. But another beautiful moment, a heartbreaking moment, was when when Will was taking off his makeup, and half of his painted on mask was there and half was not. And that's his dilemma of he wants to do good, but he can only do good if he pretends to do white. To be white. Yeah. Sorry, to be white, which is it's a similar commentary to Sorry to Bother You, even though I don't like that film, which is the idea that
but I know what
American
you mean.
like Black Americans like pretend to or have to give into white culture and lose an aspect of their racial identity in order to progress with their own lives and be a functioning part of society, which is like, again, like this is like the third or fourth racial allegory in this episode alone. Like again, it's amazing. And I love I love how that kind of symbolizes that struggle for him, but also his relationship with Captain Metropolis, and like the fact that he was gay or bisexual, and how he like basically betrayed him. And you see how the Minutemen were all flash and show, and he wanted to do something good. And I love that character progression for him. It's so great. And then at the end of the episode, it's really powerful when, they show how he killed Judd, and then Angela kind of, you're right, like phases in, and you're seeing like her grandmother and parents and like that whole like sequence. I thought was beautiful as well.
One of my favorite parts of this episode is the bit with Judd when he's like, it was my grandfather's, it's my legacy. Why are you hiding your legacy in your
closet? Yeah, that's a great line. And
love that bit.
And with Will, I mean, when he comes in and sees that his son wants to be him, again, that idea of legacy and generational trauma.
Mimicked in episode 9.
Is it?
Ending of episode 9, very overt when very end of the finale, when her son walks in and sees her outfit.
Oh, I didn't think about that at all. That's an interesting parallel to think about. Yeah. And he's like trying to scrub the paint off of him. And I love
Did I just break your mind and introduce a new element to the show?
Yes, you did. And why this episode's already brilliant. But the idea that like he's trying to scrub off the pain of like his own interracial division and like the racial pain in her. He's trying to scrub off his kid, but he can't.
Yeah.
And it scares his kid. So his kid now inherits that trauma and it's become a part of his life instead of dealing with it. It frightens him like it frightens his father.
It's a bit brilliant. Weird that he married the baby he saved when he was a child.
A little bit, but you think about it, it's like what, they're 4 years apart.
It's not weird that it's the age difference isn't weird. It's that he married the only person he had a connection to, and who I feel they were probably raised together, I imagine. Yeah, probably helped raise her. Yeah, so I feel like his relationship with that person would be more like a brother-sister relationship. Which it's like. Oh. Yeah. All right. Well, any further thoughts on episode 6? I think I got it all out. You got it all out. God damn it, Ryan. It's just so good, man. Yeah, I think that's. For context, if you don't get my humor, I'm not actually mad at Ryan for talking. So he never stops. To be fair, I do that a lot. He never stops. If I'm really into something, I'll ramble like that just because, like, I've already analyzed it, and then as I'm analyzing it verbally, I'm just like, there's more that comes into my mind and more, so I just keep going. And I enable you. I co-host. Oh, you do enabling me. That's you. Episode 7. Episode 7. So I like the backstory with Angela. I love all that. We've kind of touched upon it. With her parents, it's really heartbreaking. I love the elephant reveal. Yeah, that was so cool. And like it's weird, but like it makes a lot of sense because elephants have memory. Yeah, I explained that to you. I think the reason why it's that elephants famously have long memories. Long memories, and like a lot of basically brain storage space for memories. So it makes sense why they dump it into an elephant, basically. Yep. So I thought that was cool. To me that was a really affecting part, and like the scene with the grandmother is quite sad. Great song choice. The whole backstory, and I also feel. And this is the reveal as well about. There is a weird element to the relationship we're about to talk about with John, Dr. Manhattan, and Angela, because as a child they show her multiple times, and they address this in the next episode. Her parents die, and it's partially because of Dr. Manhattan, because he invaded Vietnam. And then also, when she's in the orphanage, she's painting like Dr. Manhattan dolls or babushkas or whatever they are. So she has this long-running relationship with Dr. Manhattan as a child already. Yeah. I find that aspect of it very interesting. That is really interesting. I didn't even think about that.
But that is very interesting, because then she kind of grew up seeing him as like a deity. So like that's part of their relationship in a sense. That's a very good point. Episode 7 is really great. It is kind of a tie-over episode.
It's a tie-over episode.
You get a little bit between True's clone mother and Angela, and like that's a good conversation.
The performance of that actor, she's fantastic as well.
Yep. Laurie finds out that Crawford's wife was part of. He's also part of Cyclops.
By the way, if you're watching the video, for some reason I've been fidgeting with a capsule that you put in your laundry. If you're watching the video and wondering what in the world I'm fidgeting with, this is meant to go in the laundry basket. Don't know why it's on my desk. The bit with Laurie.
Go on.
For some reason, my computer keeps. Sorry, my audio just went out because my computer keeps defaulting to my AirPods, which are in the case, so it shouldn't be doing that.
That's fine.
And so it disconnects me for a second, but I'm back.
That's okay.
I don't love the bit with, in terms of writing, I don't love the bit with Laurie when she comes to Judd's wife, and she tells her
Judd's wife,
the Crawford's house. I don't love that because I find that it is it's out of character for Laurie, but she seems to be always a step ahead, almost, even not always ahead, because it takes her a while to figure out the whole will thing with Angela. But she's always on the pulse, you know. She always she's very smart and always knows what's going on. And for her to go to the Crawford's house and lay out the plan to his wife, his widow, and then let herself get captured like that, I feel it's very out of character for Laurie, because that character, the way they write her, is smart enough to know that because she suspects that Judd might be part of the 7th Cavalry, that perhaps his wife would know about it as well and be in on it. So that why would she? It's weird that she goes to that house alone.
Yeah, a little bit.
And is very susceptible. And then there's that whole beat on the couch when she's pressing all the buttons, which is a comedic moment. But I also feel like that character would like not let that happen. Like in terms of writing, that's one of the few moments where I'm like, it's off. The character consistency is not right, in my opinion. It doesn't ruin anything for me, but I was just like, not the best way to do that, especially considering how you've set up that character to act.
I thought it was totally fine, because she was dealing so much with Angela and focusing on Will Reeves and all that, of like, it's so clearly that's what she's looking into, that like considering that to me wasn't really.
It's not a huge problem, like, but it makes that sense. Character would consider that, even if she's dealing with other stuff. But she goes to it just doesn't seem right in my.
I don't know.
The more I think about it, the more I dislike it in that aspect.
That's fine. I personally don't see it that way. But fair enough.
It's very out of
Any other thoughts on episode 7? Just because I think that's about it. Oh, well, that's the reveal that her husband is Dr. Manhattan.
Yes,
Cal's
and we're going to get into
which you and I both knew about.
We got spoiled, but
we got spoiled by that. It didn't, because it was a great reveal. Actually, the way they did that was really well shot. I thought
we get the blue dick reveal, baby.
Yeah, big time in episode 9 as well.
Daddy-o.
All right, episode 8. A god walks into a bar. A bar, Angela, a bar.
Didn't I explain that to you as well? Are you still in my knowledge?
Did you? Someone did.
I think I did. I probably did.
Probably.
Big brain over here. This is also my other favorite episode of the show. The writing, I'm floored by it, because they must have planned this out so meticulously.
Yeah.
They're juggling so many different timelines, and this is exactly like that issue of the graphic novel, where it's like Dr. Manhattan's on Mars and he's recalling all the events, and you get his inner narration, you get his inner monologue, his narration, and that the way this plays out with the conversation at the the bar in Vietnam, and it cuts through all these elements of their relationship. It's wonderful. It's a great setup to the finale. It sets up the calm before the storm. The ending of this
So
episode
good.
absolutely slaps, and the choice of music is
Oh yeah,
God-worthy.
so good.
Yes. And I also feel like they perfectly capture the essence of how Dr. Manhattan works in terms of how he perceives time and whatnot. And it
Yeah, they
also
nailed
works
that.
as and I have one problem with the depiction of this, but I'll get to it in a second. And you might be able to change my mind. I just haven't made my up on this yet. But
Sure.
before I get into that, I will say that this is another episode that works as a film unto itself.
Yes.
Mostly,
Yes.
of course, it ties in with the rest of the show, but you could
Yeah, I know
edit
what
it.
you mean.
You could
Yes.
edit it to be a
100%.
standalone thing.
100%.
It's
Yep.
this romance between these two people.
Yep. Yep.
And so you could edit it to just be like this 1 hour film that you can watch after reading Watchmen.
Yep.
And my one thing about this episode is I don't know, on my rewatch I was thinking about this, I don't know how I feel about, there's two things. I don't know how I feel about the depiction of Dr. Manhattan in terms of he doesn't feel as disconnected to humanity as he's set up to be in the graphic novel.
Okay.
He seems much more caring and open. Like, you see him being in love in the graphic novel because he's in love with Florian, and she is his only connection with humanity, and that's the whole point. But I don't know how I feel about him, just being like this Zeus kind of deity that walks around and falls in love with people, and I don't know, he feels less disconnected and much more caring. Than
I've got
There is an element.
Are those both your criticisms, or
no? There's one more thing. There is an element of disconnect in their relationship, which leads up to the one fight they set up in this episode, but it's not enough. Almost. It's
okay. I know what to say in response to that. What's your other criticism?
His voice before you see his face is weirdly muffled. I don't like it. It's annoying to listen to. Not annoying. It's kind of irritating, in my opinion. And also, because they used the actor who plays Cal, I can't remember his name. I apologize. And that actor has hair. They have a bald cap on him.
Oh yeah, I remember that you telling me this. I have no problem with this at all.
And it looks goofy as hell. His head looks like a little golf ball, like inflated balloon. It looks bad. And we'll get into this next episode, but I do not like the way Dr. Manhattan looks.
Okay, so in terms of how he looks, I disagree. I think he looks fine. In terms of,
it looks cheap. It looks like someone painted in blue, and that's it.
To me, Dr. Manhattan's character arc in the show, I think, is fantastic in the fact that they do it in 2 episodes. So here's how I view his arc, and I think this will answer your question.
Okay.
So the book is about him losing his touch with humanity, and then Laurie restores that in the thermodynamic miracle section, which is the explanation of why he should care for it. When he goes back and does or tries to, Vight's already succeeded. So Dr. Manhattan's thought is, okay, well, I care about humanity now, but there's not work for me to do here, and I'm kind of tired of this. So he goes off and he creates Europa, and now he's a god. He's fulfilled his one promise in life that this episode reveals, right? Reveals where Ozymandias was the whole time, and the fact they were created by Dr. Manhattan and that kind of thing. So he went there to make life, fulfill his promise, and he did. So he did the one thing he was supposed to do as a god, but as a human, he never fully loved, never actually properly loved. And to me, his goal then was, all right, well, my only understanding I lack in the universe currently is still to an extent humanity, because I didn't stay on there. Okay, well, I know I'm going to fall in love with this woman, and his goal for me is to understand love, because it is the ultimate thing that makes people. That is humanity in a nutshell. So he goes there to fall in love, to be more open because that's what he wants to be. He misses and lacks that understanding of that part of who he used to be, but also of the wider universe. And to me, that's what his arc's about, is becoming more human. So to me, it makes sense why he was more open and whatnot. Yet that fight scene was enough because it shows he's trying to be more human, have that greater understanding of humanity in himself. But at the end of the day, he still is Dr. Manhattan. He still has the ability to see into the future and not be present, and those kind of same issues he had with Laurie, because while he's trying to do better, he's ultimately that same person, which is what leads him to deciding to cut his memory out, because he's like, hey, I'm trying to be this way, but I can't because I'm me. I'm Dr. Manhattan. If I can stop that and fully be human and fully love and not have these other parts of me, then I will have fully experienced humanity. And he does, and he has. And that's why, like, spoilers for next episode, but like, he does die, right? But notice how when he dies as a human. He changes his, hold on, I'm almost there. His
Ryan, ramble.
His appearance is human. So he chooses to die as a human being because that's who he started out as, but also he's finally understood love. And like, to me, that is what his entire arc is, from book to his death in the show. And I thought his death was really emotional. I'll talk about that next episode. But
I don't have a problem with his depiction.
To me, that whole arc, everything to me falls in line with that.
I just don't know how I feel about him in terms of him being the same person as the comic book depiction, the graphic novel.
Oh, to me it was the same, and it carried on perfectly. In my opinion, I thought.
But no, I love this episode. It's fantastic. It has so many
it's such a great romance story, and
the bit with Adrian Veidt as well is fantastic.
It's great, and we'll talk. So in between this episode and that next episode, we'll talk about Veidt. But I thought that their romance and where it went, and the final scene at the end when she goes out to protect him, and he's like, "This is the moment. I know I love you." It's so good. The music's great. And then when he goes out there to protect her, they're protecting each other. It's so sweet, and I love that, because I didn't in the book, I didn't care about really Laurie and his relationship. I never got the sense there was anything really strong between them. But here, I really got the sense that they both loved each other, and that Dr. Manhattan had found that love he was lost for. And I just love that the episode took you through that, and again played perfectly with Dr. Manhattan's in the bar, and that's the scene that's happening for us, but also he's in these other moments now. It cuts to. I thought that was. My problem is,
I don't think that Dr. Manhattan would be able to love again. He would.
I think he would. Because that chapter in the book with Laurie defines everything.
Yeah, but
that changed him forever.
Okay, sure.
In my opinion,
I would have to reread that issue. I can't remember.
So it's I think issue 10.
But.
It's issue 9. My bad.
Going back to the show, let's talk about Adrian Veidt.
Yeah, Adrian.
The setup I mentioned earlier, how it sets up Cal being Dr. Manhattan. They give him some dialogue that's very Dr. Manhattan early on in the show.
Yeah. And the comment on religion and when you die.
That's so Dr. Manhattan.
Yeah, it was so good though how they played that. It was so.
Yeah, on rewatch, I was like, even though I knew the first time.
Yeah, I noticed that.
On rewatch, I was like, holy shit, that's Dr. Manhattan. Oh my god.
Yeah. No, that's sick how they set that up. It's so good.
But
Adrian. Adrian Veidt. So the thing is with Adrian, for some reason they in I think the first episode, Alyssa's like, who is that? I'm not gonna say because the show tries to present it as a surprise, and she goes, is it Veidt? And I'm like, well, I'm not gonna say anything.
I don't think
they revealed it in episode 3, and she was like, yeah, so I was right. It's I don't know why they tried to hide that. It was a weird thing for them to hide.
They should have just said it in the first episode.
It's obviously him in the first episode. It's obviously him.
Also,
Jeremy Irons is fantastic in the show, by the way.
My one problem probably with him is that they play him a lot for comedy.
Yeah, his storyline is definitely more campy.
Yeah, they play him for comedy a lot, I think. And I don't know if that's disingenuous to the character of Ozymandias from the graphic novel. Do you see a lot of my problems have to do with the depiction of legacy characters?
But to me, the legacy characters is what makes it so great, because Yeah, he's a bit more campy, but to me, I love his arc in the show.
If anyone's watching the video, a fly just landed on my forehead.
But I love his depiction of the show because he saved lives, and he had this idea of utopia, but the world didn't turn out to be that because it could never live up to his image of what the world could be.
That I absolutely adore.
And I love that. So what happens? He thinks he has to go to find someone else's utopia. But when he gets there, essentially, he gets trapped. And I love this, metaphorically. He gets imprisoned by his own ideals of what a utopia is.
Mm-hmm.
And he wants to leave, and he wants to go back to humanity. But his own hubris and ego of, like, I deserve credit for what I did. I deserve a reward. I never got one. No one ever listened to me. And, like, because he does deal with what he did. That trial episode, while is played for laughs and has, like, a lame fart joke. That's, like, my one issue with the show, really, is that fart joke's kind of lame. It's, like, to me, when he's, like, remember, he's crying. That trial's essentially a judgment of what he did in 1985, of is he a good or bad person? Because he himself is weighing with that. And I like how the fact that he went to utopia and it wasn't what he thought it was. So he was like, wow, what I did this in the name for when I killed 3 million people. It's not, the utopia is not what I thought it was. What I did wrong? Am I a bad person? So, like, I love how it starts from, like, his egotism down to, like, he gets humbled by understanding that what was wrong with his ideals and judging himself and his character, ultimately to return to the idea that, like, I'm better than what True was doing was wrong, but, like, I should still get a pass for killing 3 million people. And it's just, like, I love that arc and his understanding of the world. And, like, I love that of the show. Cause, like, like the way he just tosses their bodies around and burns them and, like, the clones, which was a cool reveal. I love
we didn't talk about this in episode 7, but the whole John backstory with who those people are.
Yes.
And the
so
Adam
great.
And Eve thing. I love that.
Yeah. Was really, I did too. And I loved how, like, his whole journey there and, like, the disregard for human life he shows is equal to, like, 3 million people's nothing. Like, yeah, these are clones, but they're still living things with their own thoughts. So, but it's a disregard for it. And I like how that emulates that. And, like, it's so fantastic. And then where it ends up I love that conversation.
He does that because he thinks the world is better off for him to get home. Like,
yeah.
He thinks the world needs Adrian Veidt.
I thought that was part of it, but I thought he mainly went back just because he just wasn't happy anymore.
Oh yeah,
he wasn't.
Yeah. He wasn't happy, and he thought that is.
He needs a broken world. He needs something to take care of.
Yeah.
Not everything. It was too easy for him. Yeah. And so I love.
Did you watch The Good Place, by the way?
So much. No, I haven't. Not yet.
They touch upon the theme of utopia is boring, and I like it.
Okay. Well, I thought
it's very interesting to explore that.
Adrian's storyline, for so much of it, you're confused and it's kind of strange. But once you see the fruition of what his character arc was like,
I love how strange it is.
Absolutely fantastic. I do too. One of the best parts of the show for me is how, like, kind of weird and its eccentricities I really enjoy. So I love that aspect of his character arc. And that conversation in episode 9, it starts off with Adrian getting away of, like, was I worthy? Like, why'd you have me put on the mask?
Was I a worthy opponent?
Yeah, and that great line of, like, masks make men cruel is so perfect, and it encapsulates so much of what the show's about, of, like, what they're hiding behind.
And that goes that goes with what I was saying earlier with the depiction of the police state in this.
Yeah.
With these.
Oh yeah, we didn't talk about that. I love that. Yeah, the cops wore masks in the show, and Laurie has a great line in episode 3 about, like, can you tell the difference between a masked vigilante and a cop? And she's like, no, and she goes, neither can I. And I love that. It's just, like, cops
in
become
episode
criminals
4, they have the discussion in the car. When she's like, you wear a mask because of a tragedy. Blah, blah.
Yeah, because, like, people wear masks to hide behind trauma, and then Angela's like, oh, well, what's your trauma? So, like, they're beautiful. They're great character moments like that.
Yeah.
That was another thing I don't like in the show.
You don't like Lube Man? People love Lube Man.
He's so it's so weird and They devote like 5 minutes to it when it's never brought up again. I don't
They
know
don't
why.
devote 5 minutes to it. What are you talking
They
about?
do. There's a whole chase scene, and then she goes in and she's like, "Have you seen anybody lose
That's
down?"
not 5 minutes.
There's a joke about it,
That's
and then they
2
move
minutes. That's 2 minutes.
on. Nah, it's like 5 minutes.
No,
It's too long.
You think they did a?
The Lube man's too much.
You think they really did a 3-minute chase sequence? Do you know how long that is? It was a minute.
Fair enough. So like 3 minutes of them doing stuff. It's still a little unnecessary.
No, it's fine.
So, but anyways, yeah. So everything with
Watchmen
Fight, I thought was great.
Oh my God, Ryan, what's happened to you?
Shut up.
Dude, hate the show. Zero.
Well, what do you think about Adrian's journey?
I love Adrian's journey. Don't love that they played him for laughs so much.
Yeah, sometimes that is a bit off-putting.
I don't mind when a character changes. We'll talk about that next week. And I think people, when watching media with legacy characters, they have a hard time seeing that like characters can evolve past what they originally were, and they can change over time because that's what happens to people. You're not the same person years later, and so that's not my problem with. Except I feel like Dr. Manhattan would mostly stay the same because he's a weird god. But with Ozymandias, I don't mind him being slightly different in some aspects. But him being played for laughs was just strange because the character in the graphic novel is dead serious all the time.
Yeah.
There's very little humor to that character ever.
Yeah, that's true.
That aspect of it, him just being like the biggest comedic relief character in the show, probably. Yeah. Because it's just like all his antics are very wacky.
Yeah, I can see that. That's fair.
So that episode, I love the performance by Jeremy Irons. I don't mind that he's not German. As a German man myself, I'll give it a pass. Also, a little insight I got from my father when watching this. He's 100% German. That's where I got my German from. In episode 8, when it has the flashbacks to John, when he's a child at the castle in the manor, where you see Miss Crookshanks and Mr. Phillips. There's a brief moment where you see a sewing machine just in the manor, and my father pointed it out to me because that is a German sewing machine brand from that time, and he knows that because his grandmother gave him that exact sewing machine, that brand of sewing machine when he was younger, and so they picked a German sewing machine to fit with the fact that he is a German character.
That's really cool.
So I was like, that's interesting, and I wouldn't have found that out.
Good production design.
I can't remember the name of the brand, but he's like, I had that sewing machine. Do you know I own a typewriter from 1932?
I knew you had a typewriter, just not that old.
Yes, it's my grandparents, and it within the typewriter where you type, if I want to actually type with it, I would have to replace the ink bands. But I have a newspaper, a German newspaper issue from the 30s.
That's
early
cool.
30s. I need to desperately preserve that and put it in a thing to preserve it because it will go to dust. But fun fact.
That's really cool.
An early 1930s typewriter.
Anyways, we should probably
we should probably move on to more of the
get
finale.
to the end.
Flexing my typewriter for some reason. Something I never talk about or use.
So then episode 9 has that whole reveal with True is Ozymandias' daughter. And I love the save me daughter reveal.
Oh,
nice little payoff of like, I'll never call you daughter, calls her daughter.
What I was saying about Lady True being my favorite performance. How different she is in the flashback to 2008 or 2009 is staggering, and it's all in the writing and the performance.
Yeah.
She doesn't have she's an incredible narcissist, but she doesn't have that level of like insanity. By the way, I thought about this last night and I almost tweeted it out, but I saved this thought for the podcast because it's so big brain that I thought I should save it for this. And I can't believe I haven't mentioned yet. Elon Musk is a dumb version of Ozymandias.
Yeah.
He is an incredible narcissist,
see that.
but he's dumb as shit. for someone
Yeah.
who's apparently so smart and has so many resources. So he's dumb. He thinks he can save the world.
Yeah. That's such a good point. I didn't even think of that.
Literally, he's dumb Ozymandias, but he has
That's a great point, Moses.
He also has a weird insecure god complex. Ozymandias doesn't
Yeah.
have the insecure element, but he also has a god complex.
He does, yeah, 100%. Yeah, Lady True is great in this because like you can see where she gets that kind of drive from. Is like, okay, well, I'm going to do the same thing as you, but be better. Do the thing you couldn't and kill Dr. Manhattan and take something from it. And that's another aspect of Dr. Manhattan's character I love, and they explore in the show. Just like he could have done more, he didn't do enough.
Yeah, and I love that's one of the final lines of the show.
Yep, I love that.
Might be like the final line.
I think it is the final line of the show. Yeah.
Because it's in the kitchen before she gobbles up that egg raw.
Yeah.
Crack it open.
Raw.
I have thoughts on that. Raw.
But I think the rest of the finale is really great. I love, it's very climactic, and like what happens to the Cyclops organization and like the senator gets turned to goo. I love that. Like he was such a dumb character. I hated him. So like that was a bit satisfying. And then like, True vaporizing all the white supremacists and like the whole Cyclops thing. I thought was great. Also very satisfying.
I could have used a slower death watching that.
That was that was great. But I also love the idea that True like was Ozymandias but more narcissistic and like believed that she was the answer. She could be the god, and I like that. And there are a couple things in particular.
Is she more?
Oh yeah, I think so, 100%. Because Ozymandias never had the idea to be a god. She wanted to be a god. That is more narcissistic.
If he had the resources, he would have done that from a technological perspective. And I think
maybe. But he was even surprised when she brought the idea up to him.
Because that's because the character has changed since 1985. That's what I was just talking about. That's what I was going to bring up. I think she is as narcissistic as he was in 1985.
Actually, that's a good point.
I think they're on a similar wavelength of like saving humanity.
That's a good point.
I think they're on that same wavelength, and they're about the same age that he would have been in 1985.
Yeah. But I like that, and there are two specific moments I wanted to talk about that I thought were amazing. The first was when Dr. Manhattan's dying, and like.
I'm living through
I'm reliving through all the moments we've had together, and like the way the music comes in, which is like their theme, and like it gets me to cry every time. Like it's so emotional because they're using a character attribute,
Lincoln Tunnel,
something that defines Dr. Manhattan, and using that as an emotional crux for like a devastating moment. And it's brilliant how they do that, and they write that in. So I love that moment. But there's a great moment. There's a great shot when Lady True is like getting ready to get like absorbed by the power, and she like kind of looks up, and there's a shot of like from inside the church set.
Oh, I hate that.
I love that shot because like,
I don't hate it.
It's a bit fuzzy. No, but it plays back in because later when like she's dying and things are crumbling down, it's the same shot where like that's in the background but really in focus, and her face is close to the camera but also in focus.
Yeah, I feel that moment.
And you see the religious symbol crumble and fall apart, and I love the symbolism of that in relation to her character of like
that just
false deity, and like the idea of like it crumbling apart and her crumbling apart. You know, that was already a fake set. She was already a fake god.
I get what they were going for.
She believed that she was the second coming of Christ. Like the analysis there and like the symbolism, I thought was fantastic.
But the symbolism is just so like. Yeah, obviously she thinks she's a weird deity. She's literally trying to become one. I don't need you to put Jesus
but it's the subtext
her.
Of it's not even a real Jesus. It's not even a real Jesus. It's a fake one. It's a fake cross from a fake church.
It's not a fake church. It's a real church.
Yeah, it is a fake church. Remember, it's a set. Remember, they teleported the set.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean that's not a real.
Dude, they built the set of that church inside the mall. In episode 5.
You're right.
Yeah, and they teleport that out.
That doesn't.
To me, it's the subtext of that.
Did Zack Snyder step in and direct that bit of the episode? That's Zack. No, that is not.
That's fucking fantastic. That's great writing.
No, it's not.
Nah, you're wrong.
It's not.
You're just
it's
wrong.
Not bad writing. It's just no. Oh God!
It's
In
great.
the moment The moment
So
when
good.
her hand gets pierced by the squid. Like, come on.
What's wrong with that?
Dude.
There's literally nothing wrong with that.
You were
That's
just
better
talking.
than showing the fact that it goes through like her head or something like that. Just very effective. Just like, oh shit, this is what they do. This is the threat you're facing with frozen squid. Okay, hold on.
You were just talking about the religious.
Hold on. No, seriously.
No, Ryan.
You do realize that if it didn't go, I see what you're getting at. I like that more.
You just were talking about the religion. It's
that's
not brilliant.
That's brilliant.
It's
That's brilliant. I didn't even think about that.
That's so
that's
overt.
Like, oh yeah, that's like the holes in Jesus' hands from the nails.
I can't believe
that's
you were
brilliant.
just talking.
I didn't even think about that. That's mad.
I can't believe
that's
you were
sick. I don't know how you hate that. I'm so impressed right now. I'm actually so blown away by that symbolism. That's insane. This show is so good. What the hell?
You were just talking.
So good.
You were just talking about the religious subtext, and you completely missed the fact that they have some of the most overt subtext of a character standing like this, waiting to become a deity, and then her hand gets pierced in the middle.
That's sick.
Like, some kind of religious figure called Jesus getting nailed on the cross.
I just like the like, just for plot purposes, because you're like, oh, frozen squid, what's that gonna do? And then you see like rips through her hand, you're like, oh shit, that's actually kind of dangerous.
If we want to get with my criticisms of the frozen,
it raises stakes.
If we want to talk about the frozen squids,
go ahead.
The show is incredibly inconsistent with how lethal the frozen squids are, because it shows them piercing through bone and flesh, and through cars, and being just very lethal. But then it's fine if you put a little plastic case over your head and run through the.
It wasn't plastic; it was like metal.
Yeah, but it's just the way they set it up. It should have pierced that.
They didn't show it piercing cars. They showed it piercing windows.
The way it was set up, it was inconsistent on a lot of levels. Because you also see a lot of cops just standing around and getting hit, and they're not collapsing, even though they should be getting pierced all over.
Yeah, that I did think, yeah.
And it completely does show it piercing metal, because it destroys the orb floating above Lady True, which is made of glass and metal.
All right, I'll give you that.
Yeah,
I will give you that.
Come on.
I will give you that.
Come on.
I will concede that. I will concede that.
And the whole ending with the squids and saving everything, I just don't love it.
I thought that was cool.
I just don't love it. I don't love it. I don't love it.
No issue.
I don't
thought it was good shit.
Love it.
What's your other criticisms?
I'm looking at it. Yeah, I just feel like the finale is a bit messy in terms of the whole squid element and all that, and getting crushed by the orb. Just that whole aspect of it. I think you could have written. They could have written probably a better ending somehow. It's still a fantastic episode.
I think it's great because like it's she then has that great conversation with Will in the Dreamland Theater where it all started. So there's that cyclical.
Oh my god, I love that so much. It's one of my favorite scenes.
It's such a great scene,
and the
like
music,
the music, the conversation they have about his pain and
you
her
can't
pain
heal under a mask. You need to let it breathe.
Yeah. I love that's such a great line. It's just like it plays into fruition that themes of masks and what it hides about people and society, and what it's like when masks are removed, and like they basically reconciling their now shared trauma.
Yep.
And like I love that, and it's really cathartic and it's emotional. It's really well done. And then, when they go out, I noticed how none of the cops were wearing masks anymore. No character wore masks after that line. So, like, I didn't notice that the first time around. I thought that was a nice little detail. Like, things need to breathe. All right, well, no one's wearing their masks. Our generational wounds, our traumas are now all out, and we're healing together. And I thought that was a really great way to end.
And then you get the final scene
my plot hole that I was discussing was the fact that, like, Angela was on the run from the cops, going to be arrested. Same thing with Will Reeves. But at the end, they just all walked out of there, like, totally fine. It's like, well, he still killed the chief.
Yeah, I'm
and, like,
sure
she still helped him get away. Like,
yeah,
you're just going to leave it?
I think the plot hole with the squids is bigger.
In a sense, but that's one of those, like, sci-fi things where, like, it's okay, versus, like, you just had episodes of them looking for the killer, and then they just letting the killer go. I
agree with you, but that's a huge aspect of it. But I think waving it off as just a sci-fi thing is a disservice, because even sci-fi is based in science, which is consistent rules.
But when I rewatch that scene, I will be like, yeah, that's true, but also like I don't really care a whole lot.
Science fiction.
It doesn't bother me as much.
It's based in science, which has its own rules, and it breaks its own rules repeatedly.
This bothers me more.
It doesn't bother me as
anyways,
much.
that was my only issue with that.
I can actually give a logical reasoning as to why that would happen, and it's because they have bigger shit to deal with. They have bigger fish to fry. Because
it's a killing of a police captain. They're not going to let it go.
But I'm not saying they would let it go. But them leaving, I don't have a huge problem with, because
okay, I see where you're going with it.
An orb just landed in the middle of the town square.
Frozen squid just fell down from the sky.
Frozen squids just fell down from the sky, and the world's biggest trillionaire just died. And so I think they have bigger fish to fry at the moment. And all those cops are still her friends, even though they were ready to arrest her earlier. So I can give that a pass. I really don't have that much of a problem with it. I mostly have issues with the squid falling element. Because it is incredibly inconsistent. To a point where it's like, there's no way you can justify it being like how I just did with the leaving the theater without getting arrested. Like, I can justify that. I don't feel like I can justify logically why some people were not getting torn to shreds.
Fair enough.
Especially with how Adrian Veidt described how the squids would act. Because he said everything in a 5-block radius is about to get destroyed. And it just it looks like hail. Yeah. For some reason, some of it acts like hail for some people, and other people, it tears through their skin. So
fair enough.
In terms of the ending, she should have made an omelet or something. She should have made a soft-boiled egg. But nah, what does she do? She just gobbles up that shit raw.
Yeah.
You're not going to lose your god powers if you make an omelet.
You don't know that. Maybe the omelet will be blue, and she'll be like, that looks funny, and tosses it out. No thanks.
Maybe the frying pan is the god now.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that'd be so funny. I love the ending because to me, Angela taking the egg and that line of he could have done more of Dr. Manhattan at the end of that show made the choice to be human. And now Angela's making the choice to be
a god.
To be a god.
Maybe.
And to me, whether she walks on water or not doesn't matter. What's ultimately more important is the idea that she made that choice, because so many bad things have happened to her in her life that she had no choice or control over.
Yep.
And the tragedy of what's happened to Dr. Manhattan is included in that. And all of it, how it was set up wasn't in her control. And now as she's choosing to let go of her rage and her trauma, now understanding, more about her family's past and her parents and all that, she's deciding to finally let go. And in that, she's leaving behind the aspects that define her as a human, which is the trauma and whatnot, to be a god. And whether that works or not is sure, she'll forget she won't forget about it, but she'll reconcile with that. But also if she doesn't, symbolically, she still made the choice to better her life in some way. And to do more. And I just think that for her, that closure of you're taking someone who's really, truly angry. Again, it's a great character piece, even for her central character, the way she's hidden behind masks. And now it's just her. She's reconciled with her grandfather. She's, come to terms with his past, with her past, and she's ready to move forward. And that's, symbolizing the way that egg, rebirth into Dr. Manhattan, and how that all comes to fruition. I think it's great, and a great aspect of her ultimate character and how they finish it out. And the ending to me reminds me of Inception, where it's there's two possible realities, but ultimately it doesn't really matter what it is.
You just tied in Inception and Christopher Nolan.
Okay, but it's obviously like that. It's just like that.
It's an ambiguous ending. Shut up.
No, it's not an ambiguous ending. It's
Speaking of Christopher Nolan, apparently he's not willing to budge the release date of Tenet again because he's
he will at some point, because theaters won't be open again in a month.
But he says it doesn't matter. He'll do it even if it hurts the box office. But I have a quote to say to that, similar to what I just said about Elon Musk. Christopher Nolan.
Yeah, he's being dumb about this, but he's not a dumb person.
I'm not saying
he's being dumb about this.
What's the quote? Christopher Nolan. In terms of how you're handling the release date of Tenet, all I have to say, sir, is you either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
look, I love Christopher Nolan, but like he shouldn't be doing this. We shouldn't be doing this. But the ending is like Inception. I'm sorry.
Christopher Nolan, you've done something wrong if Ryan is disagreeing with something you did.
I'm upset.
If you've upset Ryan, Christopher Nolan, if you were able to upset Ryan, Mr. Nolan, then
that's the thing.
Sir, you have done something wrong.
Well, he can't do wrong, but he has done wrong, you know, so it's like heartbroken. Anyways, yeah, I love the ending, and like I think, you know, it works so well. It ties everything together, and it the last 10 minutes show what I love the most about the show, which is like the way it's able to have clear, definable themes that are reflected in character arcs, and how those two things have synergistic relationship that enhance the themes that the show's presenting, as well as the character arcs within them. And like, I just think it's on that level, it is flawless.
Nothing is flawless.
I think in that way it is.
I'm not going to get into that, but nothing is flawless.
Issues I have of minor things that to me have nothing to do with, I think the way it presents its themes and characters, I think
there are stories
phenomenal.
I think can come close to perfect, but nothing is literally ever perfect. By saying something is perfect, you're being hyperbolic.
No, because in my subjective point of view, my only two issues with the show have nothing to do with the themes or the characters. So, in my eyes, when I watch this for the second time, I can't find anything at fault for me personally. So, in my eyes, to me, the handling of characters and themes in Watchmen is flawless.
Personally, for opinion, you see it as being perfect.
Okay, but clearly I'm talking about it in that way. No, nothing can be flawless in it. Nothing can be perfect in an objective sense ever. Yes. Nothing.
Next week, are we done?
Hold on. All right, eager to move on from Watchmen, are we?
Yeah.
Let's give our normal closing thoughts. I thought you were. No, it's fine. You hate the show now. All of a sudden, it's
fuck the show. The squids are inconsistent.
Yeah, you get to that part, it's like, well, now the whole show doesn't make sense. Why am I watching?
Shut the computer down.
Yeah, podcast over. General overall final thoughts on Watchmen.
Also, I just when I did that, I closed my lid and I revealed to the world the fact that I am wearing pajamas and not actual
That's okay. Some episodes I record with no pants on, so don't worry about it.
Wait, Ryan, what? Excuse me.
I mean, some days it's hot in here. Why am I going to wear pants if you're not?
Are you Dr. Manhattan in this podcast?
Okay, no, I've got underwear on. I'm not
Ryan,
a total,
stand up,
monster.
Stand up. Reveal the pants you're wearing.
No, I'm wearing jeans right now, but like.
Are you wearing your underwear?
The buttons unzipped and all that. No. This is important. Anyways, final thoughts on Watchmen.
Is your penis hanging out, Ryan?
No. Final thoughts on Watchmen. God.
Why are your zips? Why's your zip open? Ryan,
it's more comfortable. What are your final thoughts on Watchmen?
Ryan, this episode is a mess.
Oh my God, isn't it?
It's also gone over how long I wanted it to go.
Yeah, let's wrap up. Let's go.
It's a fantastic show. It's one of the best shows I've seen in recent memory. Probably in my top 10 or top 5 shows of all time.
Yeah, me too.
It stands alongside maybe American Vandal, which, by the way, I found out American Vandal
funny.
Was the one of the people who made American Vandal also produced and co-created Zack Stone Is Gonna Be Famous, which is another incredible series which you should watch. It's a Bo Burnham series from the early 10s, I think, early 2010s.
Okay.
Fantastic. It was an MTV show, canceled after one season. It is golden. You really should check it out.
Okay.
Very similar to American Vandal, and incredibly stupid premise. It's a documentary format, mockumentary format, but it also has some heart to it. So
I'll get to it.
It's got that good element, American Vandal, which I think makes that show so good. No. Watchmen, excellent show. Yeah, it's great.
Okay. My final thoughts are, aside from Lube Man and like a couple inconsistencies in the last episode, I think it's a staggering piece of work. Episode 6 is like I think it's a piece of art in my opinion. And I think that the show is just incredible. It's also in my top 5 shows of all time. And I just think it's one of those things everyone should watch. It's incredibly topical. It's really entertaining. It's unbelievably well written, well set up, well structured. and just like even the filmmaking it's so well done. The music by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross is fucking banging. It's so good. The soundtrack itself very operatic. You know, has some great operatic tunes, some great 70s, 80s bops. It's got a fantastic soundtrack. So just I think for me on every level, it's an amazing piece of television and media, and something I clearly was so excited and happy to talk about today from the ramblings. But
just, I think it's a great love a show that has a more nuanced take on. This goes more for the graphic novel than the actual show, but I love media that has a more nuanced take on something like, what if superheroes weren't all they're cracked up to be? Because even though I like the show, like The Boys, have you seen The Boys?
Yeah.
Like that, in terms of nuance,
I really enjoyed
the first season.
It's a really good, very good first season.
But like in terms of like what they're trying to do, it's like, what if Superman was
a
evil?
dick?
Yeah, was a dick? And this is more like, what if Superman couldn't connect with society anymore because his powers disconnected him from what made him human in the first place, which means he couldn't save any of them in the first place. I mean, the philosophical considerations you would have to put into this. Oh my god.
Yeah. Crazy. But yeah, anyways, so Watchmen.
Abuse of power.
That's the way they handle that on the show is interesting. But yeah, Watchmen, it's absolutely phenomenal. Everyone I've showed it to has really enjoyed it or loved it.
My dad really liked it, and your
dad liked it.
Television. The fact that I got him to watch 4 hours of television yesterday says a lot.
Yeah, so great show all around.
He only watches his German crime show on Sundays.
What are we doing next week?
Fuck yeah! What are we doing next week? We are talking, discussing, the
dissecting
plot, story, and themes of The Last of Us Part 2. Ryan is currently playing it. He'll be done by next week's episode.
I'm halfway through.
He is currently emotionally tormented.
It's so good.
Devastated.
I cried before sleeping last night thinking about it. I was genuinely thinking about it, and I was listening to Future Days by Pink Floyd, which features heavily in the game.
It's not Pink Floyd, dude.
It's not Pink Floyd. It's
Pearl Jam.
Pearl Jam,
Pink Floyd is very different.
Sorry. Yes, Pearl Jam. Thank you. I was going to check that.
My favorite song off Dark Side of the Moon.
You know, I was listening to that and thinking about the game and the events, and like I'm halfway through now, and I was just like, it's so overwhelming, but in the best way.
In terms of what we were just talking about, it's not a perfect story for most people, but personally, it scratches all these itches for me so well.
Well, I'm halfway through, and apparently the best is yet to come, so I can't even wait to see where it goes.
You have an advantage over me when I played it the first time. I can walk you through it in terms of emotionally. Oh shit!
I've taken breaks.
I told you to take breaks, but I'm like an emotional.
I only play like a couple hours a day. I'm like
I played it in 4 days, man.
I do one chapter at a time, and just like it feels right. We'll see what the next section's like in terms of that, but like as of now, up to this point, the structure it felt very much like, oh my god, that was a lot. I'm gonna take a break and like think about it for a day, and then prepare myself to jump back into it.
I think you could probably do 2 days now in a row for where you're at, maybe.
In
terms of how heavy it is.
Okay.
Because it's
I'm playing tonight and a lot tomorrow. So I'll be done by the weekend, Sunday or Saturday. So I'm really.
I think I'll be done by Saturday. I think you're going to go through it faster than you expect.
Okay.
But no, we will be going full on spoilers.
Yes,
it's going to be a lot of fun.
It's going to be great. I can't wait to talk about it. Can't wait. Music videos, films, TV shows, and now we're doing a video game.
Which has people say shit about Naughty Dog making like cinematic games in terms of the storytelling.
So good.
Last of Us, I can see why they say that because it's so like.
It's so cinematic.
They say this in the official Last of Us podcast, which you haven't listened to yet because it's spoiler filled. And you haven't finished the game. But the structure of this second game is more like a novel, less like a that's how Neil Druckmann described it, and less like a film, which I very much agree with. This film
Interesting.
This game feels, in terms of the plot and the story and the structure, doesn't it's not as structure-wise. It's not as cinematic as the first one.
Yeah. Well,
that's one of the biggest differences for me.
Yeah.
But it's more ambitious.
Well, I can't wait to see, how that comes to fruition, that idea. I love it at the moment. I think the first half has been, exactly what I've wanted it to be in terms of pacing, the brutality, the violence, the commentary on revenge, the characters, like how exciting it's been, just like the emotional devastation and like the reveals and like, yeah, it's been so good so far. And like the fact that you and my other friend Alex were telling me that like I haven't even seen anything yet, it's just like that's
you've got
just,
some good shit to play through, man.
It's just mind blowing to me.
It
So
is good
I'm
all
all
the
for
way
it
until the end. It's like got you on the edge of your seat until the final.
So you say that, and I think after the final scene, it's like, oh, it's sick, and then the final scene is shit. It's like up until the end, it's like, it's sick. Then the end happens, it's like, oh, and that was bad. But no, I'm super excited. No, I know, but like, yeah, I know. But yeah, I can't wait. Next week's going to be a fantastic conversation.
I don't know if you're just going to be a blubbering mess of tears by next week.
We'll both be crying. We'll both be crying. All right, so
we're simping for Neil Druckmann next week.
Oh yeah, we are.
I have already decided that's going to be the description of the episode. We simping for Neil Druckmann.
We simping for Neil Druckmann. Parentheses, The Last of Us Part 2 discussion. All right, so that is it for this week. Like we said, next week will be The Last of Us. If you haven't seen Watchmen yet, first of all, why did you listen? Second of all, please do. Please follow us on our Letterboxd accounts, which Moses is going to post in the description below.
Our email is
our email,
thegoodthebadandthekino@gmail.com.
Yeah, contact us. We're always looking for feedback, whether it's about stuff that people want us to talk about. If you have an issue with, something
Ryan
we're doing
rambling,
or criticisms,
Ryan talking too much.
Shut up. Well deserved. All right, this show's so good. Anything like that, contact us there. Otherwise, that's it from us this week. And we're really excited to discuss, The Last of Us next week, and it'll be great.
I'm very excited.
Me too, man. What a game. What a game. Story as well. What a story.
What a story.
All right, well, stay safe, everyone.
Stay kino.
Thanks for, subscribing and whatnot, and stay kino.
Keep it kino.
Keep it kino. I still like that.
That's
all right, see you guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye.